Hey everybody, I'm feeling blessed today because I'm with Homer and Brent on My Faith with Homer and Pip, our special guest in just a moment. Homer.
Normally it's Mother Teresa, but I wanted to honor someone who's already been on My Faith, Chris Lawton, a medical doctor. 7 years ago, he said, I'm going to retire to become a priest. And it's now 1 year away as a special event coming up this weekend. And God is good and God is incredibly powerful. He says the easiest decision he ever made in his life. Think about that.
Absolutely incredible. And you know, for me today, you just see God everywhere. You can be taking a walk only a few hundred yards away and you run into somebody, you strike up a conversation and you say, here's a woman of faith. So I am just so blessed and thankful to introduce our guest, Mary Peterson. I made everybody wait because of some technical problems. But we're going to get going anyway. And Mary, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. I'm glad to be here.
We always kick it off with Homer.
And Mary, if she's watched any of them, knows the question doesn't change. I want to know when, how you wish to start My Faith. Take it away.
Well, actually, I'm going to go all the way back until when I was a child. I had two brothers, mom and dad. Mom and dad had us in church every Sunday, and that's where I spent all the way through high school at that church. But church at that point in time to me and to my whole family seemed like it was more of a social event than it was really developing any kind of relationship with God. And then I went into college, and I had a spiritual awakening in college. I had friends who belonged to a church, and I got closer to God at that point in time. Realized that my faith was really important and that I needed that, but I never really developed deep roots. So as things came up in my life, as some of the stories that Jesus told, if you don't have your house built with bricks, it's only built of straw, then all it takes is some blows and it blows over. And that's kind of what had happened to me after that experience. So fast forward about 20 years, it was a failed marriage. I'm raising my kids as a single mom. Going to my second marriage in 2000. And it was decided by my husband and I that we were going to go to church, start attending church together again. And that became more important to us. We got involved in some groups at the church that we were in. And life was good. Had our first grandchild from my husband's daughter. I had a great job. I was working at a nearby hospital as a nursing supervisor. I was making a lot of money. Randy had a great job. We were exercising regularly. We were doing triathlons on the weekends and actually weren't so bad at it. But still, those things were more important than what was happening in church. Our lives were always more important. We were bigger than God. At least that's the way I look at it in hindsight. Fast forward to 2008, sending my youngest off to college. Still had that great job. Wasn't feeling so hot at work. Ended up in the emergency department. I thought I was having a heart attack, really, because my mom had her first heart attack when she was 49. And I just thought I was following in her footsteps. I ended up being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And that really hit hard. It was such a blow. What's that going to do to my relationship with my husband and all of the exercising that we did and the races that we did and the 150-mile bike rides that we did for charity? What was that going to do to our finances? What was that going to do to my career? All of these things that I thought were so important at the time, but really in hindsight, they weren't important at all. Still going to church. Actually, my stepdaughter came to church. She doesn't come very often, but she came and she brought me a gift. It was a pendant that had the parable of the mustard seed on it. And the parable of the mustard seed talks about if you put faith as small as that mustard seed and you believe that you can move a mountain, that mountains can actually move and that God can do those things. And I don't think she knows this, but that was really a turning point to me because it helped me to understand that I didn't have to allow MS to define who I was, that God had plans for me. They might not be the plans that I had for myself, but God had plans, and his plans were going to be better than what my plans were. So I went along with that. I got back to work, but I wasn't making as much money. I started volunteering. Randy still did all those sporting events, but I volunteered so I could be there to support him. And actually found out that volunteering for events is actually more fun than being in them, getting to know the people and getting to know other people and actually being able to share your life and your situations with others. That was great. So that went on for a few years, and then 2014 came. Things weren't going very well for me at work. I was struggling, and some things were going on, and my doctor actually took me out of the workforce. So that was a huge blow because here again, too, what are we going to do financially? What am I going to do with my time? How am I going to live? You know, these so many things you realize are so important to you when really in the long run, they aren't. I joined a Bible study that was at the church across the street from us. That Bible study I am still in today. They're my group. They're my rock. We stick together through thick and thin. We meet every week. Well, not so much in the summer, but I don't know what I would do without those ladies and the studying that we did have done over the last 10 years. Then my mom got ill, and so it was good that I wasn't working because I was able to be with her and help take care of her. She had heart condition and ended up having a failed heart surgery and dying 6 weeks later. So she died at the end of 2015. But the neat thing in all of this was that when we were in that church when I was a little girl, we were all there pretty much for social. And I don't know, and we don't ever know what everybody's relationship is with Jesus. But over the time, my college years, over the things that had happened through our family, each and every one of my family members, my mom, my dad, both my brothers, had in their time developed a personal relationship with Jesus. And so when mom died, we were all okay that it was, we were going to be able to see her again. And so that was a good thing. So then let's fast forward to 2020. 2020 was the COVID year and the world was turned upside down. But little did I know my world was going to be turned upside down as well, but in several different ways. And my faith was going to be tested. It started out, my oldest brother, Mark, had tongue and throat cancer, was diagnosed 30 years ago with it. He was only given 10% chance to live the next couple of years, but he lived, we were graced with 30 years for him, but he wasn't doing so well. He ended up in a clinical trial and was in and out of the hospitals. In May of that year, my brother Brian, who lives in North Carolina, I got a call on a Sunday afternoon because Brian had asked a police officer to call me. And I was told that there was a car accident and that my brother was in the car accident with his wife and that they were being transported to the hospital. I lost my sister-in-law that day. she was filled with joy. Her purpose in life was to share joy with others and to share the love of God with others. And so there were a lot of questions. Why did God take her? And I was talking to Tom, I think it was probably yesterday. And looking back, I saw something in picturing what happened during that car accident. I saw God taking Karen up to heaven with him. And I really truly believe that was her time to go. I believe that God numbers our days, that he knows. And I don't understand why. But I do believe that our days are numbered. So anyway, so Brian ended up in the hospital for off and on for 3 or 4 weeks. That night of the accident, I made plans and flew out to North Carolina that night. And I was actually down there with his family. He has 4 daughters. 2 of them had just graduated from UNC, and they were both at home. They were looking for jobs in a COVID world, and so that was difficult for them at the time. But I did spend 5 weeks down there. I was down there for a couple weeks after my brother got out of the hospital. And so that was in May. In July, we buried Karen. And then in August the 12th of that year, get a call. Randy was out for a bike ride. He got in a bike accident. Back a couple years before that, Randy was diagnosed with Parkinson's. He had had a back injury while he was jogging and ended up having back surgery. And then after back surgery, the doctor said, I think we need to talk about the elephant that was in the room. And I was like, well, I don't know what he's talking about. But he said, Randy, pretty sure you have Parkinson's disease. So we had been dealing with that too. But anyway, so Randy was in a bike accident, taken to the hospital, in and out of ICU twice. I think he was in the hospital for maybe 10 days, and he went onto a rehab facility. During that time, my brother Mark was ill. He was in and out of the ICU. In fact, when I went to North Carolina to be with my brother Brian, my brother Mark was in the ICU in St. Louis, and my brother Brian was in the ICU in North Carolina. And it was like, what am I supposed to do? And my brother Mark, the oldest, said, go and be with Brian and his family. So that was why we made the decision that we did. So let's see. That was August. September. October, my dad developed COVID. He had major heart problems with it, so he ended up having to go in the hospital. He never came out of the hospital. Actually, he went to a rehab facility and then he went back into the hospital. But he ended up dying in November of that year. I hadn't seen him in 5 weeks because of the stuff that was going on with COVID. No one was allowed to visit. So I hadn't seen him in 5 weeks, but they allowed me to be with him when he was passing. And I'm very thankful for that. Got to hold his hand and talk to him a little bit and tell him that I loved him and told him that God was waiting for him and that Mom was there waiting and Jesus was going to be there and that we were all going to be together again someday. And I sang hymns. It was a very precious time. So that happened. I told you that I got COVID in there. So I was in quarantine for 2 weeks. And because of my MS, my doctor was worried about me. So all that happened. So let's see. Told about God knows our ways. We got through that. People asked me, how do you do it? And I think that all of the life events that I've had, and I think God has been preparing me, for all of these things. He's preparing us for these things. Why do they happen? I don't know, but I've learned that his ways are a lot different than our ways. You know, Randy and I wanted to be in Arizona for 4 months out of the year, and that's not going to happen. His Parkinson's has been progressing, and it's added some stressors. He's not driving anymore, and we've been having some problems sleeping during the night, and so that's caused some frustration in both he and I. And so life is just not turning out the way that we originally thought that it was gonna, but God has control, and we need to give it to him. And in looking back of all the experiences that happened through my life, the on again, the off again of my faith, God was there. He was never the one who left. It was me moving away and moving closer to him. And I truly believe that the closer that I am to God, the better I deal with things. And I do believe that those experiences have helped grow my faith. Yeah, that's about it. I used to ask God to be my co-pilot, but I learned that it's better off that I ask God to be the pilot and allow me to be the co-pilot in my life. And so every day I just wake up, I am an instrument for him. We are his hands and feet, and our mission is to share his love with others. And that is, it's not being a triathlon person or winning races. It's not riding 150 miles on a bicycle or making hundreds of $1,000s a year in our career or having big houses or having homes in Arizona or being gone half of the year. It's to live our life where we're at and to share with others. And so that's where I was. And so I see Tom walking down the road one day, and I hope that I can say this because I'm gonna, he has his rosary in his hand, and I'd seen him around. I knew who he was, and I'd seen him around, and I had just finished jogging. I try to jog 3 or 4 times a week, and try to exercise 5 or 6 times a week. So I just walked up to him, and I said, "Do you pray the rosary all the time when you're walking?" And so we just got started in our conversation, and that's how he and I think we talked for maybe 45 minutes. We walked up and down the road probably 4 times. But anyway, so that's where I am. And I'm still in my ladies group. I love it. Randy and I just joined a study last night. And believe it or not, our ladies group is going to be studying Job. And if anyone knows anything about Job, he was a man after God's heart. And lots and lots and lots of things happened to him. And he did not allow his faith to falter. And it's just kind of ironic. So we'll see how that goes. I don't know the whole story, but I'm going to find out this fall. Yeah. So here we are today.
All right. So I have so many questions. I'm curious to your conversations with God. Do you pray? You talked about just the whole process of being in and then off. And so you don't necessarily have to pick one. I don't know if one stands out, but has been the process for you in terms of the conversations or how you best have dealt with things?
I think that I have always known that God is in control. It's been more like I have not given up and given him the control. And God promises that he's going to be there with us and see us through it. And I feel like when I am with God, I'm not asking him why things are happening. I just know that I need to focus on me and my relationship with him, and do my work. When I've fallen away, it seems like things have happened, whether I was kind of falling away in my faith or whether I was strong in my faith, the things just still kept happening. But I do know that the closer I felt that I was being, the more time I was feeling, the more conversations I was having with God, the more I was learning from reading his word, more learning about him, then the better I felt that I was in the right place.
You also said, I don't know what I would do without the ladies. Explain.
God doesn't want us to be alone. And I think that I spent a really good deal of my life thinking I can be a manager. I can make a lot of money. I can do well in sports. I can do this. I can do that. Me. And I don't think God even wants us to do that. God created us to be in relationship with him and to be in relationship with others. And I mean, he created Eve. And I believe that we all come together as a community to support one another and help each other through things. And, you know, words of encouragement, phone calls, meals, the prayers that were going up from these ladies in my group when things were happening in my life, as well as things happening in their lives too. I don't know. It just, that was a real clicker for me too. It helped me grow so much.
And going back many, many years ago, when you said, we decided to go to church. You didn't have to decide to go to church. There are a lot of options in there. And you just, what? It's been a long time. What made you say, okay, we're going to go to church when you alluded to that you hadn't been?
Well, I can thank my husband for that. I had told him stories about the churches I was involved in, pretty strong church, that those years that I was in college, and I had kind of fallen away. Like I said, my roots weren't deep enough at that point in time. But anyway, Randy grew up in a Lutheran church, and he was in church every weekend, but he hadn't been in church either. And so I think it was a mutual decision that we both needed to get grounded and to get back into church. And so we just started making a habit of it.
All right, Tommy. Yeah.
Mary, what a blessing to meet you that day. And as I look at you, and even today, you never know MS. I mean, you're out there pounding it. As I told you, you can go a lot faster than yours truly, and a lot harder, and all this success and what have you. But inside all of that is a beautiful heart, a heart that lives in the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And through all the tragedy, is it your faith, the hope that this life is not the end game? As you said to your parents, we will be together in heaven. Is that what sustains you a day and a moment at a time?
It is. I've learned that the time that we have on earth is so much smaller, is so minute compared to the time that we're going to be in heaven. But we all need to remind ourselves of that, because we're living in a world who's constantly telling us that you have to do this, you have to do that. These things are all so much more important. And I think our true mission is to love one another as God loved us, and to that this life is not going to go on forever. And hopefully through my experiences, I'm going to be able to share with others, and hopefully they'll be able to deal with things too and understand that life is a lot bigger than just here on earth right now.
Absolutely. Homer and the Holy Spirit had the idea for My Faith with Homer and Pip, with Homer and our producer Brent Young on Tommy Pippins, and we're blessed to have Mary Peterson as our guest, my neighbor, and I'm so grateful that God connected us.
Mhm.
Through all the tragedy and the hurt and the pain uh, and all the loss, at some point, being human, as Job cried out, um, didn't you just say, "Come on, God, what's going on here?" How difficult was acceptance, that process of getting to that point where you surrendered? But that in itself, as you know, is an act.
Yeah, and I think that actually that was a process. And I think as I was getting to know, doing more studies and doing those Bible studies with the ladies, and my faith was growing in that. Um, why God? Why? Uh, I Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how much I did of that in 2020, because I think over time and experiences, my faith had grown. Um, I never doubted that God wasn't there. I doubted what his plan really was for me or for us, or why these things were. I don't know if I questioned why these things were happening. I did say something to a pastor once in 2020 when all this was going on. I thought, God must have a plan for me. God, something bigger is around the corner. Maybe I'm being prepared for something. I don't know, but I would look in it as what's in here, God, that you are trying to show me or teach me. And instead of really breaking all that down, it was more like he was wanting me to depend more on him.
It's a beautiful answer. It seems as if through all of this adversity, and again, that's what Homer telling you, people have faith, Tom. Somehow they navigate the tragedies, the challenges in life gracefully, with the Lord's love and His help. I sense that in the midst of this, you have, as the Bible says, a peace that transcends all understanding and
Amen.
guards your heart and your mind in Christ Jesus.
Jesus. Yeah. Yep. And I can't go without uh, giving a shout out to my brother Brian. He has been uh, my best friend
Mhm.
for a very long time. As I said, it was him that told the police to call me um, after the car accident, and then I went down there. But he is someone who has been um, just someone that I have always looked up to, because his faith has been very strong. And yeah,
Homer asked this question. I imagine if you're going to ask it, buddy, I ask your forgiveness, but it comes to my mind, and it's a wonderful question. When have you felt closest to the Lord, and when have you felt furthest away from Him?
I think when I got diagnosed with MS, and I came to the realization that I wasn't going to church as much, it wasn't as meaningful as it should be. I didn't have that relationship, wasn't as strong as it could have been, even though I was attending church. Um, I was living my own life. And yeah, I think that was kind of a rock bottom for me. And other than how the world would look at things, I think I feel closest to God, or I do, after some of these, situations happen. Um, Laying on that bed in the emergency room with my father, and he is dying, and I am singing to him. Um, we're climbing Jacob's ladder. I'm singing to him, "Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home." I really felt the presence of God there. And God's only as far away as we allow him to be. He can be close to us, and he wants to be involved in everything. But I think that's probably when I felt closest to him, was at that moment.
One last one, because I know Homer has some more for you, Mary. You have impacted so many people. I know I'm not the only one, and I know that God is using you in a mighty way. What do you want to tell people who are going through the most horrific time for whatever reason, be it loss, be it disease, anxiety? What do you say to offer them hope on their own spiritual journey? Because many of us, as you know, during tough times, don't surrender it and basically give up. What do you say to keep them going toward the cross?
That we don't understand why things happen to us. Why we don't understand why bad things happen to good people, as they would say. That God is with us, that he's made us promises, that he will not leave us, he will not forsake us. And even though it seems like terrible things are happening all around you, that God has the ability to find the good in it, and make good of bad situations. He's told us that. And also to just be able to be a friend, try not to be too pushy with them, but know that I'm there for them. And hopefully them being able to see what I've gone through, and sharing. I think by sharing our stories with others and what we've gone through helps them be able to go through, hopefully, some of the things that they go through.
You're just full of humility, God's humility, Jesus' humility, and his love. It's remarkable. Homer?
I can't wait until Mary watches My Faith, because she will see what everybody did is, and that the incredible smile you had talking about that experience with your father's death. I mean, to observe it, to think it had to be one of the toughest moments of your life. But when you talk about it now, there's incredible joy that we see.
Yeah.
There it is again. There's that smile again.
Yeah, and one other part of the story that I missed telling you is that my brother Mark passed away a year ago last January after that long battle with cancer, and he was beaming. I had a video call with him the day before he died, and he was still hanging in there. Like, he felt like God still had a plan for him at that point in time, even if it was only 24 hours long. But he smiled all the way up until the day he died, because he knew that God had his back.
Does that surprise you at all? Or what thought or emotion does that create when someone says it like I did?
Say it again. Like you did what?
No, when I talked about how you were smiling, I mean, is it, I'm not surprised, or yeah, it's that special, or it
It
makes
is
me
that special.
ask about a wow moment. I would say, observing that feels like your wow moment.
It is. It is. And knowing that we're all going to be together again. And as Tom had asked before about this, these things that we're going through here on earth, it's just so minuscule compared to the life that we have after this. And I'm just looking forward to being able to be together with my family again.
And My Faith is 30, 40 minutes. But I'd love to ask, you meet someone who you can see their faith is developing, but you only got 30 seconds. You only have 45 seconds. What do you make sure you say that in that short a time, so they get the best, or what's something you just think they must know about your faith? 40 seconds, that's it.
I say that I'm a Christian and that I believe that Jesus Christ died for me and that he is my savior and that I will be able to be in heaven someday. And that I believe that God is with us all the time and that he promises that he will be with us. And through it all, he will see us through it all and that he will make good of situations. I don't know how, I don't know what is going to happen, but I totally believe that God is going to be in control and all we need to do is to believe.
Nicely done. 40 seconds.
Yeah.
Was it really? Was it
No
really?
rap
That's
star
funny.
needed. It was
And
awesome.
the only other thought is, in this incredible story you told us, are there any strengths or feelings that you have now that surprise you the most? Like when you were younger, it just wasn't that important, or you didn't understand it, and now you do, and now it's just a big part of what you choose to talk about.
Well, I never thought when I was growing up and I was in the church that we were in that it was ever that Christianity ever was as much or should be as much of people's lives as it has become a part of my life now. Would have never ever fathomed that. I never thought that I would be so dependent on God and not on me. I've learned that I am really nobody, just a vessel, that can't do anything on I shouldn't do anything on my own accord, that God needs to be in control.
Anybody that you choose to mention that's just a big part of who you are and what your faith is. I don't know who and where, but I'm always wondering when someone
Well,
what's
besides
the
my ladies,
what, no, it could
um,
be ladies. It could be anyone.
my brother Brian and Karen, his wife, who left us. Brian has been my rock. He really has been, and yeah.
Can you
So
explain Ben the Rock? Why do you say that?
he is a very strong Christian, and he is very wise, and he's also my older brother. So you listen to your older brother. But I'm looking at a picture of him. That's why I keep looking off to the side. Because his faith, I believe that his faith carried me a little bit through a lot of things. When I was on my oats times, during my first marriage and some of the years after that, my brother and Karen were praying for me. And he's always just been there for me. And yeah, he's my person.
All right. Do you ever think you might have been a rock to somebody else the way he has been to you?
He writes me letters and tells me those kinds of things too. So maybe we're each other's rock.
All right. Tommy?
What else can be added, Homer? Mary Peterson, you're a great woman of Christ, and just so thankful that you decided with the Lord that you would join us today on My Faith with Homer and Pip. And I know that anyone who sees this, they come within the sound of our voices and see you and see that smile Homer referred to, will indeed be blessed. And that's our prayer in this passion project we call My Faith with Homer and Pip. So I'll get to see you soon. And Randy, I know as a rock, I see the humility in him as he goes forward a day at a time. You're amazing people, and we're just full of gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Peterson has been our guest on My Faith with Homer and Pip. Once again, Homer and the Holy Spirit came up with this idea, which we do hope and pray will help you en route to and through the cross. As a friend of mine says, who's been through so much, Tom, I've read the last book of the Bible. We win. And we thank you, producer Brent Young. Take care, everybody. Until next time, God bless you and keep you.